What's up? My name is Eric Butler. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back. And from Pix 11, lower rents needed to fill empty Manhattan storefronts, borough president says. So, surprise, surprise, people are leaving New York City. Can you imagine? How could this be? Why would they do that? Is it because the crime is through the roof? The taxes, the garbage, the rats? I mean, what's actually happening? Meanwhile, they have K9 units outside of CVS to stop homeless people from stealing toothpaste and deodorant and Spam or whatever it is they're doing. And that's CVS. We're not talking about the high-end, Gucci store, the leather handbags. They can't stop that either. They don't want to stop it because then, of course, they won't be able to ask for more money from the federal government to pour into the pockets of bureaucrats all over the place. So now the borough president is saying that they need to lower the rent. And I guess this is part of the plan too, right? They could turn the city into absolute chaos, and then a guy like Bill Blasio, or Warren Wilhelm, as he should be known, is going to come in and buy it all up for pennies on the dollar and sell it back to you and then try to build it up. Now, that's conspiratorial. I can't prove that. I can't prove any of this stuff, obviously. If anybody could prove any of it, then maybe we'd get something done. But apparently they're good at these schemes and these scams. And, of course, in New York, even if somebody can prove this, there's nobody who's not in on it. They all know, and they're going to say, yeah, so what? If you try it, you're going to jail. That's the bottom line. So how is the borough president going to fix this and bring businesses back into Manhattan? And for the record, businesses had been leaving for years. When I left New York in 2020, 57th, Billionaires Row, there was bums sleeping in doorways in what is supposed to be, $1 million properties. Now they put up, illegal immigrants in 5-star hotels. And then they refuse to leave. But again, I digress. That's a completely different story.
Right, so with the people in charge.
Yeah, this morning we look at Manhattan.
That's right, welcoming back Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine for one of his regular visits. So, Borough President, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Dan and Hazel. Great to be here.
So let's talk about this, right? Because I want to begin with the topic of what we're seeing kind of play out on the streets. You walk around, you can see so many different empty storefronts, especially on 9th Avenue. I was in Hell's Kitchen at my grandma's apartment the other day, and you just see all of these empty storefronts. What can be done about getting people back into these businesses with rents they can actually afford?
Well, we've got vacancy on almost every street in the borough, and this really saps life from neighborhoods. It's a public safety issue, and we've got to get this going in the right direction. The rents have to come down. The bottom line is that landlords are charging rents that are unrealistic in this market.
Okay, so there you have it. This guy, Levine, wants to blame the landlords. All right, sure, maybe the landlords are a little bit greedy, but how is a New York City politician going to point the finger at a landlord and call him greedy? Right? You guys are the problem. Your policies, all these weird, I used to work in New York real estate, all these weird rules and regulations, all this stuff, they're trying to make it seem like the landlord is always the problem. The landlords are basically like cops for them, right? They can point the finger at the landlord and say, you're just greedy. They can point the finger at a cop and say, you're just a racist. This is what they do every single time. So look, I don't know anything about this borough president except for he's a New York politician, therefore probably a scumbag, is immediately going to point the finger at the landlords and pretend like the politicians of New York have nothing to do with why this problem exists.
Market, and the spaces are languishing vacant. We need to look probably at very aggressive measures, maybe even a vacancy tax to force the question.
Okay, of course, the landlords are greedy, and if they don't lower the rent, we're going to tax them. Wow, how predictable.
So that the rents come down. When they do, I'm confident entrepreneurs will step in and we can fill up these spaces.
What does that tax mean? Because
this guy literally just said that there are too many vacancies in Manhattan, and if the landlords, who are greedy according to him, don't lower the rents, he's going to tax them. And he says they're the greedy ones. These people will tax the air you breathe, no doubt about it. Right? That's why they charge 3.5% or 4% city on top of the state and the federal, and they can't even pick up the trash. They can't even keep the trains on schedule. Meanwhile, they're they're taking 3.5% of every single one of your paychecks. And that's not enough. They want to do a congestion tax. If you drive your car downtown, you have to pay them again. Right? It's never going to stop. It costs $20 to cross, the Verrazano or the Tappan Zee or the Cuomo Bridge, as it's known. Every single thing costs an arm and a leg, and he's still saying, well, if you don't have a tenant, we're going to tax you even more. And we see something similar in San Francisco. There was this weird ordinance where buildings that would get covered in graffiti, The building owner would be fine if he doesn't clean it up quick enough. Meanwhile, if he cleans it up too quick, the graffiti people come right back. So it never stops. It's always your fault. It's never them. And we just need to take a little bit more of your money, and that will fix the problem. Or maybe take a pharmaceutical.
Help me understand. Some people said some landlords make money from them actually being vacant than having somebody who pays a cheap rent.
I've tried to pick this apart. I don't think that is actually true.
Okay.
I think it's just that for them to lower the rent, they feel like it would jeopardize their financing. Maybe their other tenants would also ask for rent reductions. So they're resistant, and they'd rather leave it vacant even for months and years on end. Once the rents come down, entrepreneurs will step in. We have to force that.
Can we talk about housing, too?
And you hear the way these guys talk. We have to force that. Look, he comes on here, he's smiling, Mr. Levine, whatever. And he wants to force landlords to lower the rent. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the rents aren't already astronomical. Of course, everything costs way too much in New York City because of people like him constantly taxing businesses. And that's why the prices go up. And he's going to force the landlords to lower the price. And if they don't, he will tax them. That doesn't work. That's like what's happening in California. Well, maybe not apples to apples, maybe apples to oranges, but they're giving out, in other states too, they're handing out inflation relief checks as if they don't. I mean, look, I'm not an economist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. It doesn't take that much brain power to realize that cutting checks, blank checks, printing more money or more ones and zeros in your little bank account or whatever it is, doesn't get rid of inflation. It only makes it worse. And this guy is using that same exact theory. Well, it costs too much. Let's just tax it some more. And then for him to say, we need to force them to bring the rents down. And like I said, look, I'm not here advocating. I mean, the rents, obviously, they're I believe the highest in the country, maybe San Francisco, maybe Los Angeles. So I'm not here pretending like it doesn't already cost too much. But for him to sit down on the news and say we're going to force them is absolutely despicable, because you obviously are part of this problem.
How you want to permit housing in some of the retail space. What area specifically are you focusing on to make that happen?
And just for the record, right, these are the same people who are spending millions of dollars, $225 million on Rona equipment that they sold 3 years later for less than a penny on the dollar. $90 million spent by the city or the hospital system to house illegals, right? They put them up in 5-star luxury hotels and then come back to you and say, why are you charging so much? If you don't bring it down, we're going to tax you. Like, after all of that, how does this keep happening? Because, I mean, they have the power, they have the control, and like I said, there's nothing you can do. I mean, I could scream about it into a camera all day, we can constantly talk about it, but they're too powerful, bro. And look, I'm open for the discussion, right? If there's a way to get rid of these people, I am open for that. But outside of physical conflict, there's no way to get rid of these people. There's nobody at the top that will answer to you. They're all in on it, every single one of them. Even these 2 hack news reporters, I'm sure they're part of this problem big time as well.
Well, we have seen a pretty slow return to office work. We're now at about 50%, but there are buildings which just won't fill up. And that is also an opportunity.
Yeah.
Just like after 9/11, so much office space was converted.
So Rona and forcing people not to go to work, it's an opportunity. Wow. These people continue to say the quiet part out loud. Well, we changed everything. It's an opportunity, right? Empty office space is an opportunity. It sounds like they wanted to, sort of reset something.
Converted to housing. We can do that in Midtown, where there are older buildings that are not as attractive to tenants, and that could be the source of thousands of units. There are also manufacturing areas of Manhattan, which may surprise people, but the zoning is so out of date that we do have neighborhoods where you're only allowed to do manufacturing. You cannot do housing, such as in the Garment District. And by allowing for residential conversions, you don't have to tear down buildings. You're just going to bring in new apartments, potentially thousands in the Garment District alone.
The bones are already there.
Well, you talked
Yes.
about some of these buildings will have to come down. I mean, you and I have talked about this on the political show, too, about turning some of these offices into affordable housing isn't feasible in a building like the one we're in. But in the Garment District, it's a bit different, because they're old school buildings that maybe you could do it. It all depends on the layout.
Yeah, this affordable housing thing. And here's another thing, right? So they want to give homeless people money in Oregon. They want to give the Transformers money in California. They want to give black people money in California. They want to create quote unquote affordable housing. Every single one of these things is another step towards absolute control And communism. That's exactly what it is.
Yes, those buildings are 100 years old
Yeah.
For the most part, and so they have smaller floor plates.
Right.
These big office buildings like the one we're in, much more difficult to convert. Not impossible, but difficult, expensive.
Lengthy.
First, we're going to have to reduce all the bureaucratic obstacles, and there are many rules that wouldn't even permit
Good
this
luck.
to be converted. Yes. Well, no, this is mostly in Albany. There's a fight, progress on that. But it's expensive, and especially if you want them to be converted with some affordable units, and we definitely do, you're going to need tax incentives. So this is a fight right now happening in Albany. We've got to do this right. We want affordability. We don't want them to sit empty.
You know what's really sad? I've lived in the city now in Manhattan for more than 20 years.
Yes.
And it's changed so much just from looking at it. And Dan mentioned the story.
Okay, now they're going off on a tangent. They're wasting my time. But look, this guy is absolutely despicable. Yes, rents need to be lowered, but to have this weirdo politician, Mark Levine, tell you that we need to force them, and if we don't, we're going to tax them. Meanwhile, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on fake Rona scam equipment, illegal immigrants, safe injection sites, fentanyl test strips, all of that stuff that maybe you could put towards much better use. But I don't know. I'm no politician. I'm no doctor. I'm no scientist. So I guess I shouldn't have an opinion on any of this stuff. But New York is down bad. California is down bad. And look, hopefully in my lifetime, we'll see them recover. But I'm not going to hold my breath. Anyways, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe.